What's going on, everybody? This is Jeff Hillen with Selling Stories, where we discuss the struggles, successes, and life lessons learned through sales and in sales. I've got the bearded realtor, Matt Koch. How you doing, man?
The bearded realtor. I love it. I love it. Jeff, how are you, my friend? It's been a while. It's so glad to see you.
I know. Listen, I know you've gone through a lot over the last few years, and we're all excited to learn your story because I know it's going to be one that people aren't going to forget. So I'd like for you to introduce, really who you are besides the bearded realtor, as well as, after you do that, maybe tell us the greatest sale you ever made and the lesson it taught you.
Yeah, sounds good, man. So, everybody, my name is Matthew Koch, the bearded realtor. I'm with the Koch Garptis Realty Group at Keller Williams Elite, your local Lancaster real estate agent. The greatest sale I ever made and what the lesson that taught me. I mean, the greatest sale I ever made was I actually helped an old friend from CV. Jeff and I went to CV together. Helped an old friend. And as you guys all know, the market over the last 2 years has been absolutely crazy. Values are skyrocketing, multiple offer situations, and it really made it tough for buyers to buy a house. So we had to get a little creative when it came to writing offers on houses. And this person that I helped, I mean, young family, a 1 or 2 year old at the time, and we were looking at house after house after house. I probably submitted at least 15 offers for them. So the greatest sale for me was when we finally crossed that finish line. Their offer was accepted after a year of searching for a home, and the joy on their face, the emotion behind that went into that. It wasn't even the highest dollar sale price for me, but the fact that we were finally able to get them to that finish line. They bought a house, the perfect home for their new family.
Excellent.
Nothing more rewarding than that. I mean, it was amazing. There's a lot of emotion behind it, and just the pure gratification that they had. That I stuck in it. It's tough sometimes when you're running around for a year. As realtors, we're 100% commission. We don't get paid until a house closes. So some people can get discouraged. Some agents can get discouraged. But we all hung in there. We all remained patient, and we, yeah. So the lesson that taught me was having more empathy for people, understanding people's situation, and just being patient. I'm in a job. I don't feel like I'm a salesperson whatsoever. My goal is to just be there for somebody. I want to help somebody with one of the biggest purchases they're ever going to make, one of the biggest investments that you're going to make in your life. My goal is to be there for you, guide you through the process, and really help you through that. So that's, yeah.
When you say that, one thing that comes to my mind, like you said, is it gets very emotional for a lot of people. And I'm going back a few years where it wasn't nearly as competitive. There wasn't, this craziness of over ask by, no wave contingencies. There's so many unknowns today. It felt like years ago, somebody had a dollar amount and you may be able to go a little under that.
Oh, yeah.
All those things being said, now, like, you have to use maybe some recent recon of just saying, like, here's how much above that we need to go. Here's some craziness. So when you have these emotional people that are getting, rejected time after time after time, how are you handling that process? What did you say to them as each one was like, sorry, we didn't get it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing is just reminding them that, hey guys, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And for this specific client, they were a true believer that God had a plan for them. And if the house was meant to be, it's because that's what God's telling them, that this is where you're supposed to be. This is where you're meant to be. So just reminding them that, hey, we have to have patience. I'm patient. I'm here for you. I'm in the market. I'm not going anywhere. This is my full time. This is what I do. This is what I love to do. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be as patient as you guys are. And just reminding them that, hey, the perfect house is out there. We just got to find it. And that's what we did.
When you have other clients that maybe aren't as patient and you have to have, like, I'm sure you're getting messages on your phone, like, hey, this house just went up. Like, have you seen it? Like, what are we doing? So when you have that person, maybe there's a story too that you can think of specifically. How do you handle that couple compared to the person that you mentioned that was a friend that understood the patience as a virtue and that they were going to kind of work with you on that?
Yeah, well, sometimes we can't be patient, right? Because real estate doesn't stop for me. Real estate doesn't stop for anybody. If a house comes to the market, especially 2 years ago, a house came to the market, there's an offer deadline 2 days from now. We have to be available to go see it. So that's the caveat to that. I was available. I have to be available. I have to be available and kind of just jump the gun when I'm told to jump. There was times, I tell you a story. There was a time where I was at the gym and I had a client call me and say, "Hey, there's a house that just came in the market. There's already an offer deadline set. Can you show it to us?" And I'm like, I mean, if you don't mind that I show up in gym clothes, then sure. So that's what we
Yeah.
did. I finished my workout quick. I got in the car. I head right to the showing, and it was kind of fun. The funny part of the story is the other agent that was walking out from their showing. They had the key in their hand. They're looking at us, and they're like, "Who's the realtor?" And I'm like, "Oh, hey, that's me. Yeah, I'm in
Yeah.
gym clothes." And
I ran here. What did you do for your client?
Exactly, exactly.
That's funny. No, and I
Yeah,
mean, but again, you're in probably the most, besides maybe marriage. You're probably in the second biggest life decision a couple has for their family, maybe for
yep,
their future family.
yeah.
And you mentioned it right now with interest rates and competitiveness. It's difficult. Have you learned anything about yourself the last couple years as it relates to everything that's going on?
Absolutely, absolutely. I feel like for me, I've never been more patient than I ever have been in my life, and not only that, but just you build relationships along the way. As a realtor, sometimes I feel like I'm a therapist. Sometimes I feel like I'm a counselor, and
Hmm.
you're guiding people through a big process and a big transaction, and you really get to know a lot of your clients on a deeper level than just, hey, I'm helping you buy a house. Matter of fact, my goal is, if at the end of this whole thing we can be friends. And I have clients today where I met them through the process of real estate, maybe from a referral from somebody else, and we get
Hmm.
together on a fairly regular basis today. And through that process, I got to know them. So yeah, I learned to really focus on building relationships with people, really listening to people, and caring for what people truly want. The last thing I ever want to do is try to force them into a house or force them into being in a community they may not want to be just to make a sale. It's not
Yeah.
about that. It's really about guiding them through the process. And you have to have a lot of patience, a lot of emotion, and just that emotional intelligence. I think that's something that I've really learned through this process.
Well, I think it's one thing you brought up too that hits home to me for a lot of salespeople is, you can't judge a client by what their intent is. You
Yep.
have to understand that you don't know if this is their first home and how they're going to level up. You don't know who they know. So I'm sure there's certain times, we're all human, where
Yeah.
somebody's looking at a price range that isn't the most, profitable for you, or maybe
Yep.
somebody else that's in the industry, and they're very needy,
Yep.
and you're going through those scenarios. Have you been able to try to compartmentalize that and just get through it? Or do you know people that just, they're like, no, I'm sorry, I set my standard at this. And how does that work in your world?
Yeah, we learn to get through it. And I told myself in the very beginning of my career, I don't care if I'm selling somebody $1 million property or a $50,000 fixer upper or a mobile home on a piece of land or in a mobile home park. It doesn't matter to me what it is. I got into this business because I genuinely want to help people. I want to help, and you're helping people really invest in themselves and build
Mm-hmm.
their wealth. That's what to me, that's what real estate is. You're investing in yourself. You're investing in your future children, maybe if you have a family. So I told myself very early in my career that it doesn't matter to me what the dollar amount is or how much commission I'm going to make. I'm here to help you, and I'm genuine about that. So I sometimes when you get a little frustrated or you're running around all these places, you just got to think back to that first time I was in real estate. And it's just like, hey, I told myself when I got into this career, this profession, I'm here to help people. So it doesn't matter what's going on. That's my job. My job is to help you and guide you through the process. And no matter the commission, no matter the dollar amount, that's what I'm going to do.
I love that. And I actually had a post up on social media recently, and I said, if you can go back and summon that old self where when you just
Yep.
started and you had that thought process, like, I'm going to do everything I can for my clients. And it's not that I don't think you become a different person from having that motivation to still help people. I just think your life changes. You get more family members. I think you mentioned
Yeah.
you have 3 kids. You
Yep.
get more clients that are, expanding your time. And so you just have to remind yourself, like, hey, every single person is that person that I wanted back when I started. And I
Yep.
don't want to be like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm just not able to do it. Like, you want to meet their needs. And I want to ask
Exactly.
you, because you said when you got into this, do you remember your first showing or your first sale? And if there's any story behind that, because I got to know.
I sure do. And I had a feeling you were going to ask me that question. Yeah, I remember. So fortunately, and that actually leads into how the whole bearded realtor thing started. But
Perfect.
fortunately for me, my first ever showing was to one of my best friends growing up from school, Dan
Hmm.
Espenshade. I know you remember that family. He called me like the first week I was in real estate. He called me and he was like, "Hey man, we're thinking about buying our first house. Awesome. I'm the realtor for you."
Yeah.
And it was over the
I knew
summer.
this was the right decision. I knew it.
I knew it. I knew
Yeah.
it. Yeah, and it was in the summer. 2017 is when I got licensed in real estate. I think it was the first week of July. So you can imagine it's 95 degrees outside. It's 100% humidity, and I'm showing up in full dress shirt, dress pants, and you remember those old school gym locker combination locks?
Oh yeah.
That's what the lockbox was. They didn't teach you that in real estate classes. They didn't teach you that in
That wasn't
pre-licensing.
on the
That
test.
was
That was
not
not on
on
the
the test.
test.
I'm
Yeah.
sitting there like, man, how do I open this thing? It's actually become this big joke now. I'm the guy that goes around on Instagram, and whenever I see those, I post a story of it, complain about it, and it's become a thing to the point where I get agents that'll they'll send me a text like, "Oh, look what I saw today," and it reminded me of you based on that thing. So
So
that's
when
pretty
you
cool.
got in front of it, what did you think? You're like, I never thought I was going to see this again. So what happened?
Yeah, never thought I was going to see it again. I'm literally sweating. I got out of my car and I'm sweating. Now
Yeah.
I'm getting nervous because I can't open it. I literally cannot open it. I get really nervous. So what do? I adapt. I went onto YouTube and I watched the video on how to open
Hey,
this thing. And
that
thank
saves all
goodness,
of us from so many things in life. It really does.
I love YouTube, and thank
Yeah.
goodness it was one of my really good friends because I was even nervous about that. But if it was somebody I never met before, I mean, it would have been game over. I packed my bags. Real estate's not for me.
Do you ever, I mean, because of that experience, not that, you probably feel like you can handle any obstacle that comes at you, but is there anything in your preparation now that, you have that like PTSD a little bit from like the lock? Is there anything that you either would give advice to somebody on or that you do differently now with that experience?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is I learned very quickly in this career that you can't really, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? You can't let what people think of you matter to you. And if you could just let go of some of those things, it just makes life in general so much easier. Because I do a lot of videos, our team does a lot of videos, and it takes a little bit of time to really adjust being on camera and being on videos. The number one thing that's helped me is just not caring what
Hmm.
people think about it. What I just put it out, and if people like it, awesome. If people don't, well, hey, it is what it is. So
Yeah, move on.
even in that small moment with that lockbox, you get a little anxiety, a little nervousness about it. It's just like, hey, man, there's way worse things to worry about than something like that. And
Sure.
really, going through some of my health journey that I've been on, that's really helped change my life. There are so many small things in this world that I just, you know what? I'm not going to focus on that stuff. I'm going to focus on the positive stuff. I'm going to focus on putting my attention to what makes me happy.
Well, I think it's important for people to understand that, Matthew. I have a title that I want to talk about. I said what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I think you have a story that people should hear and need to hear based off of your experience with some health concerns that you had. I mean, more than health concerns. So, talk about your adversity in your health and what you went through, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem at all. So my previous line of work actually, so I used to do nuclear security at 3 Mile Island, the nuclear power plant. So I went to school for criminal justice, got hired by the nuclear power plant, and about 5 years into that journey, I actually went down for just a routine annual physical. And it was discovered through that process that I had kidney disease. I was in stage 3 of chronic kidney disease at the time, and it's not something that runs in my family. So it was kind of alarming and a little shocking to discover that's what I had.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, it was brought on. I have an autoimmune disease called IgA. So that IgA, basically, in a nutshell, is I have an overactive immune system, and it produces abnormal antibodies, and those antibodies attack my kidney. So I discovered that through just getting a physical, and realized that I wasn't going to be able to go back to that line of work anymore. So I stopped doing that. I got a customer service job for about 2 years. Didn't love it. I was in a call center, just having people yell at me all day long. I don't know. Didn't really love that experience, and that
Yeah.
led me to getting into real estate. And then so I was in real estate 2017, and toward the end of 2019, I actually went into kidney failure very, very quickly. It just came out of nowhere. Discovered it because I actually was in a small vehicle accident and hurt my shoulder, and I had to get an MRI done on my shoulder. And because I had kidney disease, that dye that they put in you for MRIs, I actually can't get that unless it's approved by my doctor. So my doctor was like, "Hey man, I haven't seen you in a little bit. I know everything's been pretty stable. Let's get you up here, get some blood work done." And when that happened, my kidney function significantly dropped, and they basically the next few weeks it really started affecting my everyday life. I just started getting very weak, very tired, couldn't do as much. They did immunotherapy, chemotherapy, Cytoxin. I did that toward the end of 2019 to try to kill off my immune system. So they use that to kill your immune system cells to give my body a break, because I was in a lot of pain. I was really tired. And I just started my real estate career. So
And up to that point, you had nothing to this extreme yet. It wasn't like there was any warning signs other than knowing you had an autoimmune disease.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I had no idea. Yeah, it came out of nowhere. I was getting a lot of pain in my joints, and we couldn't really figure out why that was happening. And, we were going through a series of tests and doctors, and we couldn't really figure out why that was happening. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, my kidney function started to decline fairly rapidly. So I did the chemotherapy Cytoxin drug for a couple months toward the end of 2019, and it didn't work. We had my second daughter January of 2020, and a month later, I was in the hospital. I was on emergency dialysis. I was doing 22 hours worth of dialysis out of the 24-hour day.
Wow.
The toxic buildup in my body was so bad that I actually almost died in the hospital. And I put dialysis off a little too long. I was scared. I was young.
Sure.
We just had our second daughter. So I was just putting it off to the point where I literally couldn't get out of bed. My wife would have to help me out of bed. Just sitting in a chair like I am now hurt, and I cried a lot, and it was very exhausting. I played sports my whole life, and to go from that to fairly active to all of a sudden I can't really function was really hard. It was really tough, and all while trying to run a new business to support my family. So in 2020, I literally was in the hospital. I was in the hospital for several weeks, almost a month, and the dialysis wasn't working, and I almost died. And we had to come to a crucial decision to, am I going to get an emergency surgery to put a port in my neck to take the blood out and clean it, or what's going to happen? And I just was like, I don't want to make that decision quite yet. Let's just see what happens. And miraculously, the dialysis started to work to the point where I was feeling better. It still wasn't that great, but it was enough that I was able to get discharged out of the hospital a week before the COVID lockdowns. So
Wow.
yeah, I couldn't be, if I was in the hospital during that time, I probably wouldn't be talking to you today. So
Now, when you were going through like you said, you had all this stuff to balance, your family, your major life change as far as your career. How are you able to have you're doing dialysis for 22 hours at a time. What was the motivation to keep going? Did you see yourself on the other end of it? Like, did you envision yourself on the positive end? Like, what was your energy source as your body's shutting down? What was that mind like for you?
Yeah, you would think for most people, when you're kind of facing death, that you would just kind of go in this thing where it's like, well, I guess it's my time. And, I wasn't like that at all. I was like, no, I'm going to fight this. I'm a fighter. I'm not going to give up. I have a family to take care of. I have two young girls that need their dad, So
Yeah,
I get
sure.
very emotional when I talk about my story, which, it's just how it goes when you face death and whatnot. But anyway, I literally I really tried to remain as positive as I could be. If I could get through these days and just remain positive and share my story with people on social media, I'm so glad that I did that, because there was a point in going through that health journey where I was like, I don't know if I really want to share with people what I'm going through. I have a new business. I don't want people to think that they're inconveniencing me. Because I was sick. I was in the hospital a ton. I was like, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to share my story. I'm going to remain as positive as I can be. I was writing offers from the chemo chair. I was writing offers in my hospital bed. We just figured out ways to make it work. I had a lot of help from people to show houses for me when I needed it, when I wasn't feeling well. If I was feeling well, I'd still go and show a house. I have clients that remind me, there's times where I went to show a house and I'm in rough shape, and I would sit at the kitchen table while they toured the house. And if they had any questions, I was there to answer questions. We just figured out ways to make it work. I had a young family. I'm a very driven person, and I wasn't going to let this bring me down. And honestly, the truth be told, the biggest thing in this whole equation, I was sitting at church one day. I had my life coach is what I call him, invite me out to our church that we go to. They were having a prophetic weekend. And at the very end of the service, the pastor, literally, music's playing, they're wrapping everything up. And I just remember him coming back up on the stage, and he literally said, there's somebody in here that's ready to give their life to Jesus. If that's you, raise your hand. I literally, uncontrollable moment, my hand just shoots straight up in the air, uncontrollably. And that's not something that I usually do. Like we go to church. I'm a religious person, and I'm more of a watcher than anything. Uncontrollably that happened. And in that moment, I literally said, I'm going to give this to Jesus. Whatever happens to me, it's happening because it's his will, whether that's not being here anymore or whether that's fighting through this and being an inspiration to other people. So that's how I really got through everything, is knowing that it was in his hands, knowing that I had a lot of support by posting everything on social media. I had so much support from the community, from our friends, from our family. I mean, it was unreal. I've never really experienced that in my life. I was kind of a quiet person growing up, and I had a circle of friends and whatnot, but I never really had.
It was outside of your normal comfort zone to do something to that extent. Yeah,
absolutely. It's always been super difficult for me when somebody says, "Hey, we want to help you. What do you need?" Especially when you're sick, everybody's like, this is so great. So many people were just like, "Hey man, we're praying for you. How you doing? What can we do for you?" And I just never knew what to say. I'm not the type of person that asks for help. And I finally got to the point where I just said, again, not caring what I thought about it, like, people wanted to help me, because it's not that they want to help me. It's they want to serve God. God is saying, Matt needs help. His family needs help. You can help him. And once I started thinking of it like that, it was much easier for people that wanted to help out, let them help out.
I'm glad you shared. I'm glad you shared your story, and I know you said you're emotional behind it, and rightfully so. I mean, you went through what I hope not many people ever have to, and especially the circumstances of all the other pressure that was already in your life, let alone the sickness that you had to go through. You started this by saying, you really don't consider yourself a salesperson. You consider yourself somebody there for relationships and to build, rapport with people. And what I've learned doing this podcast even more so is the more authentic you are and the more truthful you can be, the more willing, and you said God will, the more people want to help you, just because they see the areas in which they feel like they can get joy by helping others.
100%.
And it just meets the same need that you're trying to fulfill for your clients. It's just bringing that circle of life thing back for a lot of people. And if anybody can take away, besides everything else you've said today, is it's not that you have to worry about your vulnerability, in my mind. It's be willing to accept help from others, because it gets them joy. And if 100%. You can just keep that in your mind, it will allow you to just be willing to share your pains, your wins. It doesn't always have to be painful, right? You tell people when you sell houses, because you still want people to realize, like, hey, we actually win a bunch over here too. It's not a pity party. We got good stuff going on.
That's right.
But you got to be there for all of it. And I think that's in society today, more important than ever.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And that changed my life. I saw the joy that people got when they were able to help my family in whatever way it was. If it's dropping off a meal or picking up some groceries or mowing my grass, I mean, people genuinely wanted to help. And I try to live my life that way. I genuinely care about people and I want to help people. There's a lot of people that aren't as fortunate. I'm fortunate that I was able to get into this business and make something of it. So I try to really give back when people need help, because I needed a lot of help and my family needed help and people were there for us.
Yeah, no, I'm really, like I said, super appreciative of you sharing that story. And I will share, not on a lighter note, a story about the lock, because I didn't want to interrupt your story, but I have a little PTSD when it comes to the lock. So, just like you thought you never see a lock again, when I was in high school, we had an after football event. There was a bunch of stuff going on. And I remember this kid, Drew Bell, I still don't hold this against you, but for some reason you had one of those locks and you locked it on the back of my jeans loop.
Oh
And I was
no.
like, did you just lock this on my jeans? And you ran away, and I had to cut my jean loop because you locked that on my belt loop. So
Wow.
to this day, I don't have a good experience with those locks either, man. So I'm just in your club. If you want to start a don't like old school locks, I'll join it. Just letting you
All
know.
right, we got 2 members so far. I can add a bunch more. There's a lot of realtors that don't like those locks. That's
Absolutely.
amazing.
Well,
That's so
you,
funny.
you know, one thing I want to also talk about is, the beard, man. You are the bearded realtor, and personal branding today more than ever is important. I would tell you before I ask you a question is people ask me about personal brand, and I say, who do you follow, Elon Musk or Tesla? And I think it's important to know, like, I wasn't sure exactly, like, the agency you work for, it's about you. So, what brought on the beard, what brought on the brand, and talk a little bit about a story behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the bearded realtor thing. It's crazy because this whole time I'm like, man, this is the corniest thing ever, but it works and people love it. So when I first got into real estate, I actually sold a house. I got a house under contract my very first week in real estate, which is amazing. It's kind of unheard of. Not a lot of people do that. I was fortunate to have a really good friend that wanted to buy a house. I got into the industry when I feel like not a lot of people had beards, especially like this. And it wasn't always this long, but it was still a
Yeah.
pretty solid beard. I have a sleeve tattoo. I just was a little bit different, and that's how I wanted to be. I wanted to come in there. I didn't want to be the stereotypical real estate agent from back in the day. I don't wear a suit and tie often. I just want to be my authentic self. Um,
Absolutely.
so that's how it started. And then a couple weeks later, I sold another house. A week later, I sold. So I had 3 houses under contract pretty quickly in my career. And the brokerage that I was at the time, they made a social media post and they said it must be the magic in the beard. And I was like, that's genius. I took it and ran with it. And that's how it all started. So then I thought to myself, there's 15, 17, I don't even remember it. I don't even know at this point. There's so many realtors in Lancaster County.
Yeah.
I was like, how do I stand out? How do I differentiate myself from everybody else that is essentially offering the same product? So
Hmm.
I started calling myself the Bearded Realtor. I made a logo. I made the Magical Beard Sells Home tagline, and I just ran with it. And I'm to the point now where there's so many people that know me as the Bearded Realtor. I don't know who they are. I get stopped in places. Hey, is you the Bearded Realtor? I'm like, yeah, how's it going? I don't know
Yeah.
who they are. I don't know who they are.
Have
I
you?
made a pizza order the other day, online pizza order. I walk in and pick it up, and the owner's standing there with the pizza, and he's like, "I thought that was you." And I kind of looked at him like, "I don't know what you mean." And he was like, "Yeah, I saw the name come through," and I was like, "I'm pretty sure that's the Beard Realtor." And I'm like, "Man, this
Does
is
it give me a discount?
yeah, right. I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
day
Yeah.
made.
Well, when you talk about your personal brand and what, again, it's like that aha light bulb moment, like, here's my chance. Are you going to do something with it or not? Has anybody ever told you after, besides just being a good person and being a good realtor, has anybody ever told you, like, man, the reason I wanted to work with you is because I felt like you looked like me, or I felt like I could relate to you? Like, have you had people tell you that? Is there anybody
Yeah.
that sticks out, or a story that sticks out to that?
Yeah, I had a client. I helped him buy a house, his first house toward the end of last year, and I had a billboard up in Ephrata. I do a lot of business in the northern Lancaster County area, so I put a billboard up. It has my beard, has my face, has my logo. It's becoming a little bit more well known at that time. Maybe this was it was early last year, and he was working with another agent, and he literally saw my billboard and was like, "Huh, that's a pretty cool brand. I like that little slogan." He calls me and he's like, "Hey man, I want to buy a house. I'm looking in this specific area." And I asked him, I was like, well, how did you find me? Because, we got a random call from a random person. He said, "I
Sure.
saw your billboard, I saw your beard, and I knew that you were the realtor for me." He's like, I know I'm going to relate to you. So
Yeah.
that's happened frequently. And as we're going through these competition, the last couple of years, competing offers, having to get a little bit more creative, a lot of my clients would, we're getting ready to write an offer, and a lot of my clients are like, "All right, Matt, let's see the magic in that beard. Let's see what that beard
Yeah.
can do for us." It's just become a talking point. It's become a staple in my business.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, are you like the Buddha? Do people touch the beard? Like the Buddha belly? Do they touch it?
They do. They do.
Oh, the magic. They want to
They
feel the
do.
magic. They literally want
They
to feel the magic.
absolutely. Yeah, they
Well,
do.
I was going to say, from my seat, one of the things you brought up is, you said you got to find not only a niche, your uniqueness, but also like stand out in a way you want to be, stand out.
Exactly.
There's great ways to stand out. There's not so great ways to stand out. I think social media, you chose to stand out in a way where you did it for how you want to present yourself on social media. And you were willing to take steps where you said, you know what, with everything, my journey I've been through, I don't care if people say that was a dumb video or
Yeah.
why are you doing this? It's like, this is me. And there's plenty of people out there that you've had success with that go, I get it. I want to be about it. And it's differentiated you, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
you need to figure out your differentiation in a market where it still comes down to, we're looking for a home. We want to get the best price we can or the best value we can or be in a certain area, whatever their, check boxes are.
Yep.
And they're trusting you to make that happen.
Absolutely.
And you've got to show why, you can make it happen. But at the same time, yeah, like I want to work with somebody that I can relate to because it's a long journey now. They want to be with somebody that's in it with them. And I think 100%. You do that greatly.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And the beard, it's become a talking point. And then when you build that relationship, now it becomes a trust factor. And like you said, we're usually together for quite some time, especially in a market like we're in. So just to be relatable to people, that was the name of the game. Getting into real estate at the time that I did, utilizing social media the way I have, doing the videos the way that we've done it, and we're just having fun. At the end of the day, it's just a lot of fun, and that's what that's just what I love about it. I love having a good time. I don't like to be super serious all the time. So I love just having a good time, being who I am as a person, portraying that through the videos and the things that we're doing on social media, and it's just picked up so much steam. We're just doing things and having a good time doing it.
No, I was going to say, your smile comes through, and I'm going to give you, because I know you're probably worried saying, Jeff, I'm scared. What happens if you decide to get into real estate and you grow your beard? Here's two things I promise. One, I grow a terrible beard, so you have nothing to worry about.
Good.
And I'm also not going to be a real estate agent. So you know what? No worries here, man. I'm not in competition with you. I will never try to grow a beard that outmatches yours. It'll never work.
That's funny, and it's funny that you bring that up because I'm not going to name names, but there's an agent in the area who was new maybe a year ago, and he started calling himself the bearded agent. And I had so many people reaching out to me, telling me who this other agent was, who is calling himself the bearded agent. He can do that. It's completely fine. But the amount of people that would reach out to me and be like, "Hey, he's stealing your name." I'm like, listen, nobody can. I'm the bearded realtor. Nobody can take that. I am the beard. It's like the Ohio State, and I'm a Penn State fan, so boo Ohio State. Yeah. The Ohio State. Everybody knows that. Well, here I am, the bearded realtor.
Go. That's awesome. No. Well, listen, I there's a couple questions I ask everybody, and I was curious to see if you had some particulars that I could ask of you.
Sure.
Business books. You had a lot going on in your life. You got 3 little ones, but do you have any favorite business books that you either recommend for others or one that stands out specifically?
Yeah, so this might not be a specific business book, but for me, I like to read a lot of motivational stuff. I like to listen to a lot of motivational podcasts, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with Marcus Luttrell. Have you seen the movie Lone Survivor?
Yep.
So Marcus Luttrell wrote a book about his story. And for me, I get very motivated by other people's stories. I love hearing other people's stories and the journeys that they've been through. And I can relate because I've been through a lot in my short life. So I picked up his book. I've watched the movie. I listened to his podcast. And he brings people on his podcast that have been through something and have made something of themselves. A lot of military people, CIA, FBI, people that have been injured in war. So reading that book, listening to his podcast, it just keeps me motivated to keep doing what I'm doing. There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot going on in my life, a lot that I've been through. And, sometimes people can get a little discouraged with that. And I chose not to do that. I literally wake up every morning and I choose to put a smile on my face. That's
great.
Things aren't always easy. We're human beings and things happen in our life. Things don't always go our way. Deals fall apart. Things happen with your relationships. And I literally wake up every day. I choose to put a smile on my face. and I don't let the little things get to me. And a lot of that's I continue to read these books to stay motivated, stay in that lane. So if you get a chance, if you haven't read Lone Survivor, I mean that's an incredible story. I mean, when I
Yeah.
sometimes I think about my story and it's kind of crazy, and then you look at a story like that and you're just like, wow, like
Yeah.
that's pretty
That
epic.
reminds
So
me, I think part of my life, the way my mind is shaped, and I give my dad a lot of credit for it. But I remember, being in a bad mood or having a bad day, and he'd easily point to somebody that's in a wheelchair or has a disability or just has, every day they have circumstances that are by far bigger obstacles that they
yep,
have to face every day than I do. And I would tell anybody, you mentioned the motivation thing. I'm a big believer in sales, and success comes from work ethic and
yep,
passion, but really a lot of it stems from a positive attitude, because you're going to get a lot of negative feedback, or you're going to get a lot of things that don't go your way. And your ability to find a podcast or read a book, or I had somebody on that writes daily devotions, or whatever that is for you, that puts you in the mind space to give you the energy you need to start the day each and every day, like you said, with a smile on your face and the willingness to go out and get it. I mean,
yeah.
do it. And I know one podcast in particular, Selling Stories. I mean, I heard it's kind of good every week on Wednesdays. Just a little plug there for my own show.
I heard the Bearded Realtor is going to be on there. So
Absolutely. Yeah. So,
yeah,
yeah, no,
and
I'm
you're right.
excited for this to post.
What you said is absolutely right. When I was in the hospital, when I was going through what I was going through, there were days where even though I tried to remain as positive as I could, there were days where I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to make it out of this. And there were some dark days. COVID was around the corner. My wife was at home with a newborn, and my 5-year-old's autistic. So she was kind of in survival mode, and
Yeah.
she would try to visit me as much as she could. But there were days where I was in the hospital by myself. And those were some of the darkest times of my life, not knowing what's going to happen. So, the community support, these podcasts that I was listening to, the people praying for me, that's what really got me through everything that I got through. The amount of people that applied to try to donate a kidney to me. I mean, how do you ask somebody for a body part? How do you ask somebody for an organ? You can't. That's
Yeah.
just you just can't. But the amount of people that saw what I was going through and wanted to help me. I mean, it got to the point where it became overwhelming for the hospital. They would call me and be like you have so many people trying to donate a kidney. Like this has never happened to us before. It's like you're breaking the system here.
Tell them to stop. We've got a kidney. I want to ask you. I'll ask you a personal question, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I wanted to ask. Did you ever have a situation when you're going through this where you made a promise to either somebody above or a promise to yourself that said, if I get through this, this is what I'm going to do with my life?
Absolutely, absolutely. I said to myself, I was in the hospital, and I said, if I get through this, I can get through anything, and I'm going to be a better person.
Yeah.
And that goes with I'm going to wake up every day. I'm going to choose to put a smile on my face, but I'm going to really help people. I want to give back to people. I just want to be a kinder human being. I had so much support, and I was down. It was the darkest time in my life, and there's a lot of prayers that like,
Sure.
please let me get. I now have a second chance at life. I was
Yeah.
given a second chance at life, and not too many people get that. It's a very special thing. So absolutely, I live my life very differently, and that's
Yeah.
why I'm so positive all day. Everybody always says, "Man, Matt, you're so happy, you're so positive all the time," and it's like, well, because I almost died, and when you
Yeah.
almost die, when you're almost not here anymore, you look at life very differently. So I have a different perspective on life now because of what I went through.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And again, the reason why I asked that question is, I remember my dad had a widowmaker heart attack. He survived. And that
Yeah,
was the
I
first
remember that.
time that I was in a position of kind of helplessness. I was put in a position to help him in a scenario where, you don't get training for, when your parents have a potential life or death situation. And I just remember going through that in my mind, thinking to myself, like, life is short. You lose touch with people that you don't want to, you
Yeah.
just do.
Hmm.
And when you have those experiences in your life, it becomes very, very clear that you have a finite amount of time on this earth.
Yeah.
And you, unfortunately, probably up to that point, maybe look back at yourself and go, man, I took advantage of some days that I could have done a lot more. And
Oh yeah.
I can't do that anymore. I've been given that second chance. And that's why I was curious, because I know that's how I
Yeah.
felt through my dad's experience.
100%. I mean, there's I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and going through it's unfortunate that we have to go through some of these things that we go through in life, but I'm a firm believer that when we go through some of these hardships in life, it really makes you a stronger person. And like you said, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I'm a living proof of that. I am
Yeah.
living proof of that. If you have the right mind space and you have the right attitude about it, you'll get through it. You can really get through it. And when you do, you now have an opportunity to just live a different life and have a different mindset. So I love it. I love the fact that I went through it because it did change my life.
Yeah.
To be able to put a smile on your face almost every single day. I mean, I feel like that's a little rare. There's not everybody can do that, but like I went through what I went through, and now I literally wake up. I choose to put a smile on my face. I choose to live differently because of what I went through. And
Well,
not only that, but I had a living donor give me a kidney. So I sometimes I feel like I have an obligation to that person, and I don't. And we've had conversations about that. And that I think you just have that guilt when somebody does something so selfless, and gives me a kidney. His name's Dave Garpstis. I'm now business partners with his wife Carissa. We're the
oh, wow.
Koch Garpstis Realty Group. So my
Oh, wow.
business partner's husband is the one who gave me a kidney. We were a match, and he was one of the first people to apply for it. And I'm so grateful to him. We're very
So
connected.
he knows if you're not pulling your end of the bargain, it's like, dude, I got eyes on you.
That's right.
You're working with my wife.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I think just to your point, I tell my kids, I said, if there's one superpower you have, it's being able to make somebody else's day better. That's a superpower that anybody has inside of themselves. And I'm just so happy that you're willing to show that through your life and your story today, that everybody has that ability if you choose to make that happen.
Absolutely, and that's what I love about real estate. So real estate has given me the ability. So going through what I went through, and then being in real estate, the joy that I get out of that. So to put other people before myself, and we get paid on commission. So there's times where we don't even sell a house. We might be working with somebody for a couple months, and it just doesn't work out, and I don't get paid at all. It never bothers me to be able to try to help somebody else. And it's just a selfless thing, and I enjoy it. Real estate has allowed me to really connect with so many people, share my story with so many people, inspire so many people. Not something that I never imagined that I'd be capable of doing. I love that. If I can inspire somebody, just one person, with my story and what I've been through, and that can help them live a better life, that's my life mission.
Yeah, I want everybody to stop the show. I have one more question to ask you, but stop the show, listen to that back, and try to make that a motto for their life, and it'll make your life better. So I really appreciate that. I don't want to forget, because it's important now that people, they heard your name, they know the Bearded Realtor. Where can they find you? Where can they see what you're doing and what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you literally type in The Bearded Realtor in Google, and I can almost guarantee I'm the one that pops up. I hope so, anyway. But yeah, we're all over social media. So we have an office in Mount Joy, 228 East Main Street, Mount Joy. That's where our main Koch Garpstis Realty Group building is. So pop on in, come say hi to us. We're with Keller Williams Elite in East Petersburg, so right on Main Street, across from the Mercedes-Benz dealership. That's where our headquarters is. But we're all over social media. So if it's at The Bearded Realtor, at the Koch Garpstis Realty Group, that's the easiest way to find us. And then anybody can always reach out. Give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email. My phone number is 717-475-7654. Text me. I promise you I will text you back.
Yeah. Well, again, I think you said it best. You're now able to inspire others, and your story was really special to share here. I'm really fortunate and happy that you were willing to come on this podcast to share your story. I know for me, sitting here and listening to it, it's hard not to just feel what you went through, but at the same time, just feel so excited for the rest of your life and your family to have a husband and a dad. So we're all glad you made it, and we're excited to see the rest of your journey, because it's definitely not over.
Absolutely right, and thank you so much for having me on here. This is great. I love the opportunity to share my story with people, so I appreciate it.
So everybody, this was Jeff Hillen with The Bearded Realtor, Matthew Koch. And again, we appreciate everybody for listening to Selling Stories. Till the next time, everybody, have a great day.
See ya.